Hello, my name is Dave Young, and I designed the Guitiki guitar and built it along with my friend David Thiele, a master woodworker who you will meet in just a little bit. And you'll meet my friend Carter, who actually made this analog board here, so when I turn these lights, I can have the lights stay on, or if I turn them in this position, you'll see them flicker on and off, which is super amazing. So I talked to him about how he put that together. Little background about myself. I worked for 10 years at a video game company doing graphic design, then moving into cinematics and then working on the games themselves. I've also done a lot of freelance work, some special effects and short films and some animations, just various artwork. And then, but for the last 15 years, I've been at Sony as a visual interaction designer, UX, UI, and a lot of other stuff like that. I got into tikis in the mid-2000s, did a family trip to Hawaii, and when we got back, I went ahead and started making them out of, palm trees, of course, big ones. I made them out of foam. Then I made them out of Sculpey, making a little kind of chess set pieces out of them. I started to make 3D printed versions of them and paint them faux wood. And then I even concrete ones that I painted and turned them into candles and stuff. That was kind of fun. So, and then really what got this started was I made them out of, I made a 3D printed ones specifically to put on my guitar. So I made pick guards and a little headpiece for it and stuff, which I really liked, got a lot of good buzz from that. And then I'm like, well, the next logical step is to make a whole tiki guitar. I knew I could design it, but I couldn't build it. So that's where my friend David comes in. So we can go meet him and talk to him right now. And then we'll come back and I'll do a couple demos on the guitar. So here with David Thiele, master guitar woodworker, and he's responsible for making the Guitiki. So I just wanted to kind of talk about our trials and tribulations of putting this together.
Of which there were many.
There were many. First, how'd you get into woodworking?
Oh, it actually goes back quite a ways. It was a junior high wood shop.
Okay.
And I made a bowl on a lathe,
Nice.
which I still have somewhere.
Nice.
And that kind of got me interested in, but I didn't really do much with it. And then I got really serious about it when I went to Palomar College for the woodworking program that they have. And
Nice.
so I went through, took 4 years of going, part-time.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually ended up with not really a degree, but a certificate in woodworking, specializing in furniture making. And so in the process of that, I've made several furniture items during the class, as well as quite a few for my own house.
Right.
Probably the most difficult piece of furniture I made was a rocking chair, which was designed after Sam Maloof, who was a well-known woodworker.
Okay.
And his chair has been reproduced thousands and thousands of times by students all over the country and the world, really.
Wow.
But it's a very unique design, and so you have a year-long class where you make this chair.
Wow. Wow.
And it requires a lot of handwork and a lot of wood, some very specialized joints.
Okay.
I just remember it took 50 board feet of wood or something like that just to make this chair.
Wow.
And it's, the seats are all sculpted out by hand, with chisels and, grinders and stuff like that to get it. And
Oh my God.
you make little guides to get the seat depression just exactly right. So that was quite a project and very satisfying.
Yeah, sounds like it.
I made a high chest of drawers, kind of unique design that was in the Del Mar Fair one year after I made it.
I hope this will be in the Del Mar Fair. We'll see.
I got an honorable mention for that one.
Nice.
So that's nice. And then since then, I've made various furniture pieces for our house. Made some furniture for my daughter, my granddaughter, and that sort of thing. An oval-shaped coffee table.
Right.
And made some children furniture for my granddaughter. So she liked that a lot.
That's awesome.
And then more recently, it's just some practical things of cabinetry in the house.
Right.
I built all the cabinets in our our bathrooms and closet and that sort of thing.
Wow.
So.
And then, so I know we worked together, obviously, for a long time, and you retired, and you were getting this baby.
Yes, this was my retirement present to myself. Yeah.
Tell us about this machine.
Yeah, so this is a CNC machine, kind of heavy duty for most home shops.
Right.
It's built by a company called Axiom Precision, and it cuts a 2x4 foot base. Can be anything that fits in a 2x4 foot envelope. Works just fine in it.
Okay.
But it has very heavy duty components on it. If you look at the ball screws and stuff, they're 1/2 inch instead of 3/8.
Industrial stuff.
Yeah, it's real industrial. It's a 3 horsepower
Nice.
motor on the router head. So it's built to last. And
Right.
It's very, very precise. I mean, in the distance of this table, it's flat within less than a 1/2 millimeter.
Wow. Yeah, I know it did an amazing job. I've got that separate video of you cutting out this body and stuff. It's really impressive what it can do. And I know, so you were retiring and you talked about getting this machine, and I always said, I always wanted to get one and try to cut out a tiki guitar, but I have no idea anything about making a guitar or anything like that. And you thought that was intriguing, and much to your chagrin and dismay, you agreed to do that. So
well, yeah, it's been quite a journey. I mean, for me, going into a 3D object was much more challenging from the computer perspective.
Right.
And taking the model that you built and then figuring out how to actually cut that properly.
Right. So our Modo, I would do things in my 3D program. I use Modo and doing polygonal modeling, and then actually I would turn it into a subdivisional surface, and then I would save it out as a NURBS model and then send it to you, and then you would take it into Fusion, basically.
Yeah, I use Fusion 360 for that.
Okay. And then so you were learning that program, so you were in the huge learning curve trying to figure out Fusion 360, and neither of us know anything about how to build. I play some guitar, and I know a little bit about I know something about setting up a guitar, but certainly no luthier skills whatsoever between us. So
no,
this was
absolutely. I had just guitars have bodies and necks and strings.
This should be easy. It's all precise. It's all math and science and easy to figure out and stuff. But we certainly discovered otherwise as we were going through the process.
Well, what I learned, especially because the body of the guitar is one piece,
right?
And many guitars are two pieces, where you have the body, you cut the cavities, and then you have a cap that you put on top of it, which simplifies a lot of the construction, but also means you don't need as thick of a piece of wood.
Right.
But because of the shape of this and the height of the nose of this, I needed a fairly thick piece of wood. And it starts off as a 3-inch thick piece of wood.
Okay.
That I get, and then I edge joint it to get the width for the guitar.
Okay.
And then plane that all down to the proper height and width that I can then use to cut on the CNC machine.
Right. Okay. Wow.
But actually, before you do any of that, because the wood is expensive, you start off by cutting things in insulation foam like this.
Right, that's awesome. And you have a whole stack of those.
And I do, yeah. So this is just standard rigid insulation foam.
Right.
And I have a stack of various thicknesses from 3 inches to 1/2 inch, I think. Mm-hmm. And this is very forgiving. It cuts well, but if you make a mistake in the tooling design, it doesn't destroy your tool.
Right.
And you want to check everything out before you start cutting into an expensive piece of wood.
Right.
And so we made numerous models like this.
Right.
And,
which is super cool. The precision of it is amazing, right? How tight it holds all the lines and the edges, and it's really
so it's
quite impressive.
It works well.
Yeah, some of your early ones I made the faux wood. I took them and made faux wood just to kind of get an idea of what it might look like in wood, and we were able to test all the pickups and the bridges and everything like that. So this was invaluable, to get where we needed to get.
Yeah, it was. And, both cutting the you cut the neck is separate.
Right,
like this.
right. And the fact that you wanted to do the neck, I thought we were going to just maybe buy a neck or something, and you said no, we're going to do a neck. I was like, wow, okay. then let's go crazy.
No, the neck was a lot more challenging than I ever imagined.
Well, we're going to get into the neck for sure. I mean, the body was its own thing, but the neck, Well, I mean, the cool thing about the foam is, yeah, we could do all this testing, but you couldn't string up, you couldn't put actually tension and stuff on the strings. We never put strings on this one. And then once we made the neck, we based the neck on a Stratocaster. And I mostly play like a Gretsch and stuff. And then but the Stratocaster, we discovered some things.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first neck design, and this was kind of the initial neck that I made, and it's too narrow and not long enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't really realize it. So when we finally strung it up, the strings, by the time you got,
the bridge wasn't down.
The bridge wasn't down far enough.
Because on a Stratocaster, I was moving the bridge up, and the Stratocaster is down farther, and that didn't work with the original neck. That was a Stratocaster neck with the bridge moved up, and so it changed the geometry. Right?
Yeah, so it took a while to figure out that was actually the problem.
Right.
And then when we did, we ended up with a longer, wider neck, which solved all those kind of problems.
Yep.
A lot of the issues that we fought, as you recall, was getting the height of the neck correct relative to where the bridge
was. That was a major thing. We had shims.
Yeah, it shims, and just a millimeter or two makes a difference in how it plays.
Yep.
And of course, because I didn't know anything about guitars or playing, as long as the string went up and down,
you were good.
Good to see, right? When you start reading about it, and then of course, as you know from playing, if the action's too high, the guitar is almost impossible to play.
Right. It's really a fine line between action, the good action, and like making too much noise or not being playable. It is a really fine line. Yeah, so we discovered that. Yeah, we're raising and lowering the bridge, and we were raising and lowering the neck, and like we were trying shims.
Yeah, so this pocket right here is the kind of the key thing. The neck stays the same thickness here, but the pocket goes up and down.
Yep.
And unfortunately, when you're cutting it, you don't know the pocket height until it's already cut. And if that's wrong, you got to cut a whole new one.
Cut it. So it was like, oh my God. So then we just started making shims, and like on this guitar, I ended up. We did have a gap because we had our shim in there, so I kind of just filled it and made it try to match it with the rest of the guitar, and it's fine. But that was quite the challenge.
Yeah, and some of just to show you, the neck, starts off as just a plain piece of maple like that.
Right. And then you
cut that out on the CNC based on the model.
Right.
So you can see that's that's a little bit short, but
right.
Yeah, that's how it starts off. I mean, it's not anything that's factory made to be an approximate neck. It is.
These are from scratch.
They're from scratch.
From scratch.
And so, there are lots of different variations, and this is just one of probably 15 of these.
Yeah, we made a ton of them, and then trying to figure out the lava flow up the thing.
Yeah, so the lava flow in this is a groove that's cut on the CNC machine, and then you fill it with tinted epoxy,
right?
And then the epoxy is higher than the surface of the fretboard, and then I take the CNC machine and then recut the profile.
Right. We never let it leave the board, the jig. Basically, it stays in there, and then you also cut the inlays at the same time. Right. So when it does the pass, it knocks everything back down.
It knocks everything back down again, and then you polish it and then put a clear coat on it.
That's a crazy amount to make this amazing lava inlay was insane amount of work.
Yeah, it's over a period of several days to do that.
Yes, I mean it came out amazing.
Different types of wood. I mean, this is just a test piece out of I think pine actually.
Right.
This was the first real attempt.
Right. That was super cool.
Out of a piece of ebony.
Yep. Yeah, the ebony's beautiful. Like
and then I made another one, just a simple one for playability purposes, just out of maple.
Yeah, that's super cool.
But the combination of the ebony fretboard and the maple neck is a very rigid structure, and so even though there's a truss rod in there, you barely need to use the truss rod because it already resists the pull of the strings. Right.
Yeah, we discovered it's not a problem right now. It's super flat. It's perfectly flat. But if we needed an up bow, like we have a truss rod in there we realize we're only going one way because we see it's pulling it. So you want a truss rod that brings it back. Well, it's not pulling it. You if you wanted an up bow, you need a truss rod truss rod that goes up that way. So on the next version, if there's another version, we'll have a truss rod that goes both ways. But it's not. But this thing is laser flat. And then I discovered how to shave the frets, and reround them and stuff. So I learned a lot about cutting the nuts. Because once you were done with all the neck work and we kind of finished all that stuff, then I took it. I had to learn about how to solder up, all the components.
Right. Yeah.
A friend of mine made, I'll talk about that later, but a friend of mine made this amazing board in here that turns the lights, that flickers the lights when you play, which is amazing. But he also made these awesome wood knobs, which are super cool.
So that was interesting to figure out how to cut the knobs, and I used a prior project I did making checkers.
Okay. Oh wow, that's a clever.
So the tool paths that I used to cut the checkers essentially is the same kind of thing for the knobs.
Ah, see, that's brilliant.
I already had figured out a little bit of how to actually cut those, because it's not cut on a round thing; it's cut from the top, and so the router head has to plunge in to make each of the knurls on the knob.
Yeah, I remember having to design the knobs so they had a certain spacing between each one or something. And, but I love them. I've never seen knobs like just the wood knob. They're always like plastic or metal or something like that. I've seen these wood gnarly knobs. They just match the design of the guitar perfectly, and they look great. So and then you were able to do the even cut out all the plume at the top and everything as one piece. And I remember we had a challenge because we were. A lot of guitars have the angled neck, the head stock that goes at an angle for a reason. But then there are guitars like the Strat that are flat, so they use the trees here. But we couldn't do that angle just because of the limitation of the way the CNC machine is.
Yeah, I mean it has to be, to do the angle, you have to cut it in two parts.
Right.
You got to cut the neck, and then you cut the head.
Right.
And then you have to go to either a chop saw or something like that and cut the angle precisely. So that you can get the head to bend down a little bit. Right. And then you glue it back together.
So so with this design, everything's one piece, which is great.
Which adds to its strength as well.
Yeah. So and it works great. You just put we have the two trees, we put in there. It's just like I call it what I call a Strata Gretchen. It's a Stratocaster Gretchen Gibson all rolled into one basically. And then on the back here we had to figure out. First you made the covers, which are great. You cut out the covers and everything, which are very precise and beautiful and perfect. And then we had to drill all these, figure out all the paths, and you got the long drill bit to go through the different stuff and try to figure out how all the wiring was going to work. And then the pickups themselves, you had to make sure you're designed so they could be raised and lowered and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's been a combination of sort of this CNC part of it, which you think it doesn't produce this perfect instrument that you can just start using. Right. Then it requires some more traditional woodworking skills to make sure the curves are nice and smooth when you're sanding it, and of course you did all the faux painting on it. Yeah.
The finishing, mostly it's like I mostly just stained it. Right. So I just had certain staining in some places, then some airbrushing and some just traditional painting with acrylic and everything. So mostly it's the real wood. I haven't really covered. I haven't done any faux wood to cover up any of your woodwork really. Just in the painting, just where there's actual paint. The rest of it is the true wood. So there's no fake wood. The only place I did it was on this back panel that was black, so I kind of faux painted it there. But otherwise, that's the wood. I definitely wanted to keep the real wood because it's beautiful.
And we left some of the tooling marks on purpose. In the wood to give it a rougher feel. Because normally I would have either had a finer cut made or would have gone through by hand and smoothed that out. Yeah, no, it needs to look like a found, kind of a bit of a semi-primitive, kind of like a found piece that might have been beat up over the years with the old paint job on it and stuff like that. So, it more than met my, it's over and above what I was thinking in my head it would come out. Yeah. It's unbelievable. It plays great.
You know, and I was able to add some like I just took some for all the marks on the side of the fretboard, I just kind of took some paint and put it on there, and then I just kind of sanded it so it was nice and smooth, but it left these awesome like just like rough marks, you know. So they're perfect. They match the guitar. They look like rough, but they're like not, you know, they're perfectly, you know, smooth in there and everything. It worked out great, and the inlays are beautiful, very subtle. And of course, the neon in there will do it. I'm thinking that you know, yeah, on the next one, you know, we might try laying white down first, and then put the neon paint in there. I'll probably pop it more, and then for the inlays, maybe make it more whitish, so they'll pop more.
Right, yeah.
But I don't hate the subtlety of this either, right? You know, it's very low key, but when the black light hits it, it comes out, and then of course when you get the lights on, you know, so like I said, I'll talk about the eyes later and stuff, but you know, for these things here, I had to like 3D print them with translucent plastic, and then I actually took a lighter and actually burned them to smooth it out and like give it that black, so it like really has a kind of a cool look to them. So these are great, and then the this little piece here I had 3D printed, you know, and gold and plated up at shapeways.com, so I had made this custom gold piece. Just that piece wasn't cheap, wasn't cheap, you know. But then and then I think the nose ring we had to figure out how to do that too, you know. And it worked great, you know. Our solution there, we just drilled some holes and epoxied it in there. Works perfect.
Yeah, it works great.
You know, so it all came together beautifully. It plays beautiful. You know, I love the, you know, I love the knobs, just the placement of the knobs, just as you can do the swell with the, you know, if you want to roll your finger over the volume, it's right there. And then just one tone with the push pull on the tone to change the humbuckers from single to dual coil. And then this one's just kind of the hidden gem where it's just a hidden button. We were going to make a switch back here to turn that on and off, and that was always kind of like it was always never a great solution. Yeah. So I was like, what can we do? And then putting it on here, I think turned out to be like the bomb. Yeah. It's perfect.
That's perfect. Yeah, little did you know, I just randomly picked the location of where the knobs are.
Yeah. No, it's and they're this one up high was kind of just an accident, right? So and I'm like looking at it, I go, oh no, they need to be all low, and then I'm looking at it, I go, no, that's better. That's way better, because these ones you don't really touch much, but this one you want to have there. Some people like that rolling volume. And then you go. Of course, I got my shrunken head on the pickup, and you know, just kind of did some nice. I found a actual pineapple mask thing at just an art store or something, which worked out perfect. And then I add my own touch to it and used that, and added the background, the flares and stuff. And then I designed the turtles going up the neck, and had our friend Jason. He has the vinyl printer, so he cut those out for me, and then I used those to make the turtles going up the neck. So
yeah, it's possible we could cut those and film with.
Yeah, I'm thinking next time that would be better. It would be cooler.
Yeah,
but it's on the round. It's on the round. So, but I think it would.
No, that's
no problem. Okay, so that's
just like the logo at the top.
Yeah. The logo at the top is awesome. So I would agree that would be better. Even some of these little details, I'd love to cut in some of like some little details where it'd just be like I have all these little kind of shapes in here and stuff that are painted on, but if these were actually look like they were chiseled in, but we just make it part of the model or something, that would be kind of cool too. So some possibilities for next time, but otherwise, it's an amazing guitar. It's been an amazing journey, and
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to me too. It's like Guitiki, Guitar of Mystery, lives. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm here with Carter Smith, and he did the amazing board for my guitar, which works amazingly well. And so, tell me about your background. How do you know how to do something like that?
Yeah, so I'm a double E electronic engineer. Okay. So I have training in that. I don't do much electronics anymore, but You had to go think back to the first 4 years in college and what kind of circuits we could use to do what you wanted.
Yeah, really amazing, really amazing. So how did you come up with the circuit board? How'd you figure that out?
Yeah, so at first I was going to use DSP signal processing to do the thing. What we wanted to do is blink the eyes on your thing. Pretty simple. And then I'm like, you know what? I could just go use an analog circuit. So I just kind of like, oh, there's this thing called an envelope follower. I'll go look it up. And there's basic circuits you can use. And I just kind of found a cookbook and put a couple of those together. And
you did like you had like a breadboard thing. You kind of just did some tests and
prototyped it on a little breadboard, plugged them all in, got it working, sort of tweaked the values so that it would blink the right speed or whatever. And got it working pretty easily actually. And I kind of I think I can simplify it some more now.
Wow, that's super cool. And it came go. So the next step is maybe you're gonna do like an electronic board or something like that.
Yeah, I'll just take, now it's sort of it's pretty ugly, but it's on like a little soldered prototype board with a lot of hand wiring and stuff, so it works. But
well, we use those DuPont things to you plug them in, which was super cool.
Yeah. I think that made it a lot easier. So what I'm gonna do on the final board is it'll have a laid out circuit. And then it'll have those header pins coming out sideways, and you'll just be able to slide the little plugs on it.
Okay. So it's like almost a ribbon thing.
Yeah, it'll be like that big, kind of, and then just have some pins over here, maybe power on the other side, just super simple.
Okay.
So I think that'll be fun that won't be that hard to lay out.
Right.
So.
And that was super cool when we had that switch, and we were using multimedia, and we figured out all the positions of the switch and all that and everything. That was actually
right. So we had you wanted to be able to let's see, so off, right, on, which is the eyes are just always on, so it's just connected to the battery, and then one more position was blink with the music.
Yeah.
And so that was, it sounds pretty easy, but it's actually 2 levels of analog logic. So we get this crazy rotary switch, and then we routed it through. And
that was really amazing.
A little more complicated than I thought it was going to be.
It was I got obviously I'll show as we're talking. I'll show the things, but that was super cool. So I can't thank you enough. It came out amazingly well. It works perfectly. So I love it. So thank you.
Super fun.
All right, so we've got the knobs here. We've got volume, and we've got, this is for the lights, but this one's the tone, and this one actually is a push-pull. So when it's down, it's dual coils, and when it's up, it's single coils. And of course, I got the three-way pickup switch here. So we have 6 different options. So let's take a listen and see what it sounds like. All right, well, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And a special thanks to David Thiele and Carter Smith. It's an honor to have them as friends and that they went on this journey with me. A little noisy out here. Good news, the guitar got accepted into the San Diego County woodworking exhibit, so that's a big deal. So we're making a custom stand for it, and I will update with pictures once we get them onto the Guitiki.com website. Thank you for watching.